I'm here.
Oh, right, okay, I was just checking because I had... Oh, there it is.
There we go.
I was slightly worried that the drinks trolley appeared to be not making an appearance. Okay, so first one of the week, what is the David Jacobs Memorial Trolley, from which you've selected...
Well, if people are struggling, if they're doing dry January and are thinking of another non-alcoholic, try an Erdinger wheat beer, which is very, very delicious for a non-alcoholic one.
Erdinger.
It's an excellent choice. Erdinger.
Very good. Thank you very much for that. Very healthy, excellent suggestion. Today's confession comes from Christopher. Thank you very much for all the confessions that came in over the weekend. Smart speaker goes to Christopher. I think this would probably have... It's somewhere between a PG and a 12.
Oh, right, okay.
I would think. So we'll go through this at an appropriate pace. Father Simon and your merry band, I'm not sure if you can use this one, as it might scare the kids. But here we go. I'm sorry, not sorry at the same time. I've worked in the health service for a long time. We have quite a weird sense of humour amongst ourselves. This happened whilst I was working as a porter at a London hospital more than 20 years ago now. Part of my job was working in the mortuary.
Okay.
Out of hours.
Right.
Okay. Part of the job was to teach new porters how to prepare bodies, how to use the fridges, and how to make the recently departed ready for viewing, if that's the right phrase.
Yes, it is.
To use.
Yes.
As you can imagine, this was important work to get right, and we took it seriously. However, to cope with the stresses and strains the job provided, we developed our defence mechanism. This was, of course, our sense of humour, which, when used wisely, could be a useful release valve.
Yeah.
Sounds like an excuse. There is one particular moment that needs your audience's attention, and this illustrates everything I am trying to explain. There were 3 of us, porters, and now we had a new colleague on the way called Harry, and he was, we were told, quite full of himself. Quite cocky, quite confident about his, shall we say, limited abilities. The kind of guy who already seemed to know everything that we could tell him. You know the kind of person, I'm sure. So you need to put, when you come in, yeah, I know that, yeah. And then when you've done that thing, you just, yeah, I've seen it before. How annoying is it? We guessed this was bravado, so we decided to put him to the test. It went like this. 5 minutes from Harry coming on shift for the first time, I climbed onto the table. This is the table where the deceased were laid out upon arrival.
Okay.
Once I was on the table, my colleagues covered me with a sheet. All I had to do was to lie still, which is actually a lot harder than it sounds. I know you're ahead of me. When Harry arrived, I could hear him being shown around, and he sounded as arrogant as we had been born. Yeah, I know, yes. I know all that. Yeah, easy. So then the moment of truth. They all assembled around the table, and I'm desperately trying not to laugh. But the outline of the sheet clearly indicates the departed is lying underneath. My colleague asks Harry if he's seen a dead body before. Of course he has, said Harry. No problem, said Harry. Right you are, said my colleagues, and pulled back the sheet. Now, I have to say, Father Simon, this wasn't the first time that we had done this. I was lying with my hands together across my chest, eyes closed. I counted to 5. I then opened my eyes and said, "Parting on the side, please." Well, my colleagues hooted, but Harry's noise was the loudest. He shrieked and howled like a banshee twice. I then sat up and said, "Cold in here, isn't it?" Well, Harry had seen enough and bolted for the toilets. He might have needed to change his clothing.
Yeah.
I think he yelled something like, "You rotters," as he ran. So I would like to ask for forgiveness for our warped sense of humour. But I have to say, I was not alone in this deed, because we all did it, and it was just our release valve, and that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Well, it's Christopher's tale, and we have been down this many, many years ago. We've been down this particular aisle before. I think it was some policemen who did this trick last time. But anyway, Sister Susie, what say you?
Well, Christopher, I do feel for you because you do work for the NHS and I kind of want to forgive you on that reason alone. However, I would have been terrified, and I think that's a really horrible thing to do on that person's first day. He was probably already nervous enough, and maybe he was a bit cocky, but you didn't have to do that, did you? It's a bit mean. I would have been terrified of being in that room ever again on my own, so I can't forgive you.
I reckon Harry probably said afterwards, I knew it was you, and I could just tell.
Yeah.
Anyway, brother from another gutter.
I don't think anyone's going to be shedding any tears for Harry, really, are they? I mean, I certainly am not. I think we were all very much in Christopher's corner on this one. And also, frankly, if you're going for a job at the morgue, it's pretty much a given that it's on day one, you're going to be gathered around a body covered in the shroud. Shroud comes back and someone leaps up from it. It's just guaranteed to happen on day one. And frankly, Harry should have known it was coming. So definitely forgiven.
So that's that. So it is definitely Harry's fault. Okay. It's the people's verdict. Please, do you forgive Christopher? Yes or no? He gets the smart speaker, but does he get your forgiveness? On the text, please, 61054. Start your message with Simon. You can email Simon at Greatest Hits Radio. Merely moments ago, we had Christopher's mortuary prank on the confession when it turned out that shape underneath the white sheet wasn't a dead person, but was Christopher, who then opened his eyes and said, parting on the side, please. Anyway, the people's verdict is in. Here it comes.
Yeah, just about everyone is forgiving tonight. Tommy in Chippenham says, we all know a Harry that waltzes into a new workplace thinking they own it. Well done, Christopher. Rachel says, forgiven. Absolutely forgive. These whippersnappers need to learn. And finally, Toby says, defo forgiven. The new guy needs to chill.
Is that the best?
Yeah,
that's the best.
That was very good.
You might use that one again sometime.
I will.
Anyway, if you've got a confession, you may well turn it into gold by just sending it to me. If we read it, you'll get a smart speaker. That's the way it goes. Send it to confessions@greatesthitsradio.co.uk. The drinks trolley has arrived. The David Jacobs Memorial Drinks Trolley. David, just
leave it there.
Leave it there.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks, love.
That'd be great.
What are we choosing from the trolley as it goes past, Susie?
Well, I'm going to grab a nice glass of Vermentino, I think, because Nigel brought it in last Thursday, and it's delicious. So whatever one you want, you can have the Sting one that Nigel suggested, or just a nice glass of Vermentino. Why not?
All right, very good. Thank you very much. No, I can't remember what that tastes like.
It was the one by Sting.
Yeah,
really nice.
It was really tasty. It's nice and fresh and light and
Thanks, Sting. We'll go with that one. Right, today's confession comes from George. Simon and team. Simon, my name is George. I just said that.
Yeah.
My confession starts in the late 1950s.
Ooh.
And early 60s. Me, my mum and dad, and two older sisters lived in an old rented house, terrace house, in Chichester, West Sussex. Kate, my sister, was 2 years older than me, and Anne, my other sister, about 3 years older. So I was the youngest and the baby boy of the family. I think I was about 5 or 6 when this story happens. The house is a 2 up, 2 down, front room, back kitchen, also scullery off the kitchen, an outside toilet on the back of the house, built on the end of the scullery in the garden. I think a lot of your listeners will remember the dreaded outside loo. No light, a big water cistern on the back wall with a long chain that would freeze up in the winter. The door was open at the top and open at the bottom. Wind and rain sometimes. Snow would blow in whilst you were sitting there. Also, it was a great place for spiders of all shapes and sizes to live. There was a slide bolt on the inside of the door, obviously to lock when you're in there. And Dad had put a bolt on the front of the door, on the outside, to lock at night and sometimes in the daytime to stop the wind blowing the door open and keep banging when not being used.
Yes.
Being the youngest and the baby of the family, my sisters had great fun dressing me up as a girl and calling me Susan. My sister Kate would also love to wind me up and tell me that I was adopted, that kind of thing.
Right.
This is
okay.
So this is kind of
it's the 50s.
Yes. It was time to get my revenge. Kate hated going to the outside loo, but she hated spiders even more. I had to check their bedroom at night and the outside loo before they would even use it. So I was useful. So the next time I used the loo, I found a lovely big spider with hairy legs and saved him in a matchbox. We had an old wooden shed at the bottom of the garden, so I hid the spider in the box in an old big jam jar, and I called the spider Susan. I tried feeding her cheese. It's obviously changed from he to her now, but anyway, who knows? I tried feeding her cheese and the occasional dead baby mouse, but she liked sugar lumps with a little bit of water on. Who knew? The time had come, so I would use the loo before Kate in the morning. I had to check it out before we went to school. I broke up a sugar lump and I left it by the side wall near the door frame. Mum and Dad had gone to work. I would go to school next, and Kate and Anne would leave about 10 minutes later and lock up. So I come out of the loo, shout upstairs to my sisters that I was finished and I'm going to school. I open and close the front door and then hid in the front room. Kate then comes running downstairs and out the back door and into the loo. I quickly followed her and I heard the bolt go inside the door. I then slid the outside bolt very slowly over so as not to make a noise but trap her inside, but only just enough to hold it locked. I quickly took the matchbox out of my pocket, took the matchbox sleeve off, and I put Susan the Spider down in the open box by the side of the door frame. Susan the Spider happily jumped out. I mean, we don't know. I know she's called Susan. And I picked up the box. I ran through the house and out of the front door, closing it without making a noise. I heard an almighty scream from the toilet just before closing the door. I raced all the way to school. I was late home that afternoon. I'd been to a mate's house to play. When I got home, my mum went ballistic, and Kate was still very, very upset. But I denied all knowledge of the incident and said I'd gone to school. And Anne, my older sister, confirmed that she'd heard me go out of the front door early because I made sure I'd slammed the door. Also, Anne said that Kate screamed till she came downstairs and opened the loo door for her. I did get away with it. Dad thought the outside loo door bolt was too loose and removed it. Kate was a bit better with me after that and didn't wind me up quite so much, but she did still blame me. I never did find Susan the Spider after that. Which is a sad end. Well, not a very sad end, because spiders go off and have a happy life. Simon the team, do I get forgiveness, please, for annoying my sister? A lot of this will depend on whether you have sisters or not and where you are in the pecking order. But George would like forgiveness. Susie, what do you think?
Well, George, I just don't like what you've done here, because the outside loo is horrible enough. My nana had an outside loo and I hated going to the toilet, and it was horrible. It was absolutely horrible, and I can't even imagine, especially if you didn't like spiders, that would be even worse. And I just think you were a bit mean, and locking her in there and then running away. She could have been there for hours.
Only slightly locked in, because it was just slightly across so she couldn't come out.
Yeah, I still don't think that's very nice.
No?
So I'm not going to forgive you, George.
A brother from another gutter.
I mean, slightly locked in is still locked in, isn't it? And
but only slightly.
But only slightly. That's so true. In a way, isn't this about getting back to where we came from by having the outside loo with the spiders and everything? And in a way, haven't we all learned that, you know, that's where the little things are, the spiders, that's where they're living, and we're all living together.
Where is this
with
going?
the spiders? I've no idea. So for that reason, it feels to me like we're all coming round in the circle of life, and for that reason I'm going to forgive.
Also, plus being annoying your older sibling.
Oh, that's always good.
So the question is, do you forgive George for his spider in the outside loo story and scaring his sister? The people's verdict is expected. You text 61054, you start your message with Simon. That's the way it goes. However, merely moments ago we had a confession from George, who back in the day had an outside loo, 2 sisters and a spider, and he used a combination of all 3 to scare the living daylights out of his elder sister. The people's verdict is in. Here it comes.
So Phil says forgiven because his sisters picked on him first. It's also a brother's place to scare sisters, he says. Mark the Drain Man says forgiven. George, that has just had me crying. I did the same thing to my younger sisters when I was younger. Absolutely hilarious. And Maria in Plymouth says forgiven. As a fellow baby of the family with 3 older siblings to contend with, I wish I'd had the nerve to do something like that to get my own back. Unfortunately, I'm also an arachnophobe, so there's no chance, and I dread to think of the repercussions.
Spider confessions welcome, sibling repercussion welcome. Any confessions that you have for us? If we use it, you get a smart speaker. That's the deal. Simon, send it to confessions. So many emails to remember. Confessions at greatesthitsradio.co.uk. Susie, live from the pub, has selected something as it ran past her, out of control, as normal. What did you choose for us today?
Halfway through the week today, I thought we deserved a mezcal mule. So mezcal, ginger beer and lime.
Is Is it mez? Is that what it's called? Oh, okay, all right.
A mezcal mule. You can get a Moscow mule, which is vodka, but a mezcal mule has mezcal in it.
All right, very good. Okay, thank you. That sounds like a healthy alternative. Today's confession comes from Malcolm. It's, well, it's sort of a 12 certificate in as much as it's... Before we start, I think we should say everyone is okay in the end.
It's that bad, is it? Goodness me.
Simon and your band of dignitaries, I have lived for many years with a guilty secret. I am ashamed to say that I have never fessed up to my tale to my family, which has led to much head-scratching on their part and much looking the other way on my part. So many years have passed now that I hope the impact of my admission is dulled over time.
Okay.
My wife and I have 2 sons, now in their 40s, and both have their own wonderful families. For the purposes of anonymity, I will call them Elder and Younger. 10 years ago, when he was about 35, Elder started to develop an eye issue. If he was tired, one eye would wander slightly off centre, as if his eyes had started to do the splits. We would comment on this, but apparently it didn't affect his eyesight, didn't seem to bother him. However, after several families suggested that perhaps he should seek professional advice, he did. In the days following his appointment with an eye specialist, Elder visited us. It seems the reason for his wandering eye is because he had suffered a cranial fracture around his eye socket many years earlier. This was a shock both to him and to us. It's not the sort of thing that goes unnoticed. The specialist must be mistaken. However, we couldn't let it go. We searched through photo albums looking for the wandering eye. There it was, age 20. There it was, age 15. There it was at 12. Very slight, but now we're looking for it. There it is. We could trace it back as early as 7 years old.
Wow.
We were baffled and mystified. So, said Elder, did something happen when I was 6 or 7? My wife and I looked at each other in genuine bemusement, reminiscing about events 30-odd years earlier. Nothing. And then, while sitting around our dining table, surrounded by photos, I suffered what I can only describe as iced lightning shooting down my back. Quick, where's my poker face? The events of 30 years replayed through my head in graphic detail. My heart raced, and during all this, my demeanour didn't change. I had got away with it, but now many years have passed since we sat around that table, and occasionally the subject reappears. And every time it does, my acting skills are tested to the full. So now it's time to confess.
Wow.
When the boys were about 6 and 5, I took them camping, just us men. It was a beautiful campsite on the banks of the Thames, where the river is shallow enough to wade, and there were quiet open areas and forested walks, just beautiful. We put our small tent up together. Elder took the inside, putting up the poles and laying out the ground sheet, whilst myself and Younger took the outside together, banging in the tent pegs and fixing the guide ropes. During this man-bonding exercise, a rather large and beautiful butterfly came to rest on the almost translucent canvas of the tent. Elder stopped, laying on the ground sheet inside the tent, fascinated by this close encounter with nature. He slowly crept closer to the canvas, where he could see this extraordinary creature in its full glory. Matt has his head in his hands at the moment. This is what we'd come for. It was a captivating and enchanting moment. Younger had also seen the butterfly. He got closer to see the magnificence of nature, and then he picked up the mallet and hit it with all his force. However, Elder was by this time up close to the butterfly and caught the full force of the mallet. I rushed into the tent. Elder was lying prone. I sat him up, checked him over, no signs of damage. Thank heavens for that. Following day, there was a bit of a bump on the side of his head. I was solely responsible for the children for a week, so I did what I thought best, which was nothing. The lump went down before the end of the week, so that was okay. In the days that followed, we had a wonderful holiday, so many adventures and experiences. The mallet incident paled into insignificance. And there it stayed. Until now. Nice. So, Simon, I know it's a shocker. I would like you to relieve me of my burden. Cast holy water upon me and tell me that all is forgiven. What do you think? Well, I mean, everything seems fine. Everything is fine. Everything is fine.
Yeah.
Everything is fine. I have no idea where... I had no idea where that was going, but as I suspect you didn't. But it is quite a shocker, and Malcolm wants to know how he stands with the nation. Let's check in with shocked producer Susie.
Well, Malcolm, I don't really know what to say with this, because you're right. Everything is fine. Your two boys are now, older. They've got their own families. That's all lovely. However, going back to when they were 6 and 7, that was a head injury. That was a really big head injury, and I can't forgive you, I don't think, for not seeking some medical help at that stage. And as much as it's all fine in the end, it might not have been. So
yes.
Therefore, I'm not going to forgive you, Malcolm.
Also,
I'm
poor
sorry.
Butterfly. I mean, how come Younger was grown up to think there's something beautiful? Wallop.
Yeah.
Smack it.
I mean, actually, clearly, Young had a very bad aim as things go, but brother from another gutter.
Well, yes, I think we are overlooking the role of younger brother in this, and clearly younger brother bears some responsibility. And who knew he was going to whip out the mallet and attack the butterfly? No one could have seen that coming, and certainly not you, Malcolm. That would be a big reason for me choosing to forgive. And it was probably one of those rubber mallets as well, and they're fine, I think, normally. Yes, and also the mallet incident. There's a title for a movie: The Bourne Identity, then the mallet incident. So I am definitely going to forgive.
Well, so everything is fine. We're now decades on. Everyone's been checked over.
Yeah,
so what do you think? Does Malcolm get your forgiveness? Yes or no? On the text, please, 61054. You start your message with Simon. Moments before the 6 o'clock news, we had Malcolm's confession involving his 2 sons and a mallet, and a fly-on roll for a beautiful butterfly, and a roll-on roll for the River Thames.
Yes.
And a little bit of a camping story that was not as expected. The people's verdict is in. Here it is.
Not forgiven, says James in Saltdean. That's the first confession that's made me gasp in a long time. Definitely not forgiven. I also think Younger needs hauling up to the dock, because at 6 years of age, he too would have remembered such an incident. I don't think Dad should take all the blame. Not forgiven, says a cross mum in Bishop Stortford. This is typical bloke behaviour. Why hasn't he confessed to his family? He knows he's in the wrong. But Pete in Stockport says forgiven. The kids had clearly forgotten about it, albeit one probably because of blunt force trauma from a mallet.
Well, it was a shocking story. Malcolm's confession. Malcolm gets the smart speaker, not his actual name. Maybe now it's time he does confess to his family.
Yes.
I think. You know that story? Well, that was me. Okay. Your story, please. confessions@greatesthitsradio.co.uk. Because...
Oh, it's the trolley!
There is our drinks trolley. David Jacobs' trolley. Thank you, David. Just shuffled past. Susie normally grabs something as it goes. What have you grabbed for us today?
I've grabbed a classic bottle of Tanqueray today for a gin and tonic. Why not?
There you go.
All right, okay.
And there are some nice non-alcoholic options out there as well.
Yeah.
Belvoir do a lovely juniper and tonic.
Okay.
So you can try that
Matt pulled
if
a
you're
face
doing
there.
dry January.
Okay.
Obviously not for Matt.
No. He doesn't have the production sensibilities, I think.
No.
Tonight's tale and winner of the smart speaker is Roger, who says, Simon, this all started back in I'm not going to give the year. Anyway, this all started when I was 13 years old.
Okay.
And my grandmother had a brother called Bert, who lived in a care home in Essex. We travelled down from the northeast for a weekend to go and see him. We left the hotel in Paddington, in London. We got the tube across to Liverpool Street, then another train to go and see Uncle Bert. And we did the normal visit chat. We swapped news, checking he was okay. We bought him a local paper, bought him some flowers and some nice chocolate biscuits. He seemed to be pleased to see us. The normal kind of care home thing. We said our goodbyes and we headed back to Paddington. So back up to Liverpool Street we went, and then we needed the underground. So we're in a hurry now because I was hoping to get some food before we got onto the train. I was fantasizing about crisps, chocolate, and all the good quality food that is available at a railway station. So because time is tight, and also because I'm very hungry, we are rushing for the tube. Come on, Nana! I say, hurry up! Running towards the tube. This way, Nana, this way! Bearing in mind she's a super old lady, this was a bit cheeky of me.
Yeah.
But cheese and onion crisps, and also Mars and Rolos. That's delivered as some kind of excuse.
Yes, please.
This was an urgent quest, and no OAP was going to slow me down, says Roger. I started heading down the stairs, followed closely by my Nana, shuffling as fast as she could. We got to the newfangled barrier, but I couldn't find anywhere to put the tickets, so I got on my hands and knees and crawled underneath. Nana! I shout. Now you! You have to, You have to,
Now you?
You have to crawl under the barrier. Well, bless her, my Nana got down on her knees. And she starts to crawl under the barrier. But boy, is she slow.
Boy, is she slow.
Why? I'm not
What
surprised.
is keeping her? Come on, Nana, I say encouragingly. Looking at my watch, wondering how long I've got. Then we both hear a cough from someone behind and then a double cough. I'm too busy pulling at my grandma to turn around to see who's coughing. But then the voice says, hello, hello, hello. What we got going on here then?
Of course.
The classic opening line from one of London's finest bobbies. And he is not impressed with our clandestine activities. I say nothing. Nana is too busy inching forward under the barrier to speak to anyone. She's like a granny commando. So PC Plod says, excuse me. Excuse me, chummy. He delivers the coup de grace. Excuse me, love. This is the gents' toilet. I think you'll find the ladies is next door. That, of course, is why the barriers didn't work. Because they don't take tickets. Anyway, so now my Nana reverses. She's crawling backwards. I think Sue's going to have an accident.
Yeah.
As soon as she's clear, in which case she needs the ladies.
Yeah.
As soon as she's clear of the barrier, she stands up and runs up the stairs. I forgot to mention, she's wearing 4-inch heels, by the way.
Of course she is.
Running up the stairs, and she shouts, I'm going to kill you, Roger, taking me into the men's toilet like that. The stairs I mistakenly took for the underground were clearly signed for toilets. But I wasn't thinking clearly because I was really hungry. When we eventually got back to Paddington, I went to the cafe and had our evening meal, or tea as we say in the northeast. I asked if I was allowed dessert because I'm really looking forward to my Knickerbocker glory. And Nana says no, because that's my punishment for taking her into the men's toilets. I've never been into the men's toilet, she says before, and I have no intention of going back.
No.
Well, the following day we headed home to the northeast, and all she muttered all the way was, I don't believe you took me into the gents. I don't believe what you've done. Anyway, we did laugh about it in the end. I'm sure she's forgiven me. But do the listeners forgive me? That is the thing that is rattling through my mind. And that, I'm afraid, I do not know the answer to, Roger. But we'll find out, first of all, what the team think. Good name for a quiz show. Susie, if you've got yourself together there.
Yeah, sorry. I really did. It was just the image of the Nana reversing underneath the barrier with the policeman there just really tickled me, and my face hurts. But poor Nana, she was the star of the show.
Hurry up, Nana.
Roger, I just don't think, I just think, no, I can't forgive you, Roger. You not only took your Nana into the gents' toilets, you made her crawl commando style under a barrier. No, thank you.
He was thinking
Not
of
forgiven.
a packet of Rolos is what he was thinking
Very
of.
funny, though.
Brother from another gutter.
Come on, Nana. Superb. I love it. What a twist that was. Didn't see that one coming. Granny Commando and then trying to use the facilities. Fabulous stuff. Hello, indeed. But come on, Nana. I mean, it's not as if you've got a metal hip and you're playing in the Australian Open for 5.5 hours,
what's
is
your
it?
excuse?
I mean, come on.
Oh, you're 85. Okay.
But I am definitely going to forgive. What a great story. Best of the week.
Roger, thank you very much indeed for the confession. But the question is, he says at the end, do listeners forgive me? We're about to find out. This is where you send your verdict. This is the listener's verdict. 61054. First word is Simon. If you think he's guilty or maybe forgiven, you can email simon@greatesthitsradio.co.uk, but on the text 61054. Here comes the people's verdict.
So not forgiven, says Adela in Bradford. Hilarious. Poor Nana. I had to stop the car. I was laughing so much. Mrs. Owen Wells says forgiven. I can remember the turnstiles in public toilets and an attendant asking if my mum could fit through or would she like the big gate opened. Definitely forgiven. Best laugh of the week. And John in Ferrum says forgiven. After all, it was only a minor inconvenience. Oh, yeah.
Really?
Yeah, inconvenience.
Yes, no, I had worked that one out. Anyway, Roger, thank you very much indeed. You get the smart speaker. And if you fancy one of those and you've got a confession for us, send it in to confessions@greatesthitsradio.co.uk.